Hey everybody, it's Liz, and it's time for our book club. I'm so excited about tonight, about our visiting author. But before we get to her, let me tell you just a few things. Um, let's do our number. So I'm going to write a number on this sheet of paper between 1 and 100, and whoever is the closest to the number a signed copy of one of my books. So between 1 and 100. So be sure that when you comment with a number, you put your name in the comment as well. Because if you remember, I don't know who says what unless you put your name in it. Um, the program that I use blocks out names. So if you want me to know whose number it is, be sure to include your name. And any comments you make tonight, also please include your name. So let's get started. Go ahead, give me a number, and tell me who you are, and say hey, so I'll know you're here. Hey, Marisol. Somebody said good evening, and I don't know who you are. Uh, so just go ahead, and as you're coming in, um, just go ahead and give me your number. Number 32, I do not know who you are. Try it again and put your name in this time. Okay, next is, let me write my number. Okay. The next thing is my store. Has anybody been to my store at lizgottbooks.com? If you go to my store, my website, you will see my store front, and you can get lots of nifty things. There's not very much in there right now. You can just get signed copies of some books, and I also have the mug. I think I showed you guys one day. It says, "I love mine hot and steamy." You know how I love to tea. There's a picture of books, so I'm talking about a book. I'm not talking about. And then we have the cute bracelet. Can you see that? On one side it says book lover, and on the other side it has LS with Scott initials, my logo, and it is an adjustable bracelet. It I have about a size 8 wrist, and it fits. I mean, it goes pretty big, or you can adjust it by squeezing it as well. And then something else that I've been working on that I wanted to show you is, ready for this? I have been contemplating and working on this so long, and I hope you guys like this, but I've been working on reading journals. Do you see that? To go along with our book club. If you notice, I made the covers. Those are my characters' names. Do you remember? There's Mary and Kai, Rose, and Rashad. All of the characters are on there. And then on the back it says, "Live, Love, Read." And then on the inside, I'm not going to show you much, but on the inside, I have a lot of different things for you. I'll show you more in depth later, but there is a place that you can do your book reviews as you're reading our books. And you can even have your questions for the author right here, so you're ready to go when you finish the book. So this is a project I've been working on. Now let me tell you, each one of these is made by me. So don't expect them to be perfect, because they're not. And I cannot promise that any two are going to be exactly alike, because they won't be. But as I finish them, I'll put them up on the store so you can see what each one is. But they'll all have the same cover. They'll all have the same back. Okay? And they're wire bound so that they open flat so that you can write. So there is that. Then eventually we'll have the book sleeves coming. This is a quote from Sweet Surrender. And let's see. Oh, the bags. Remember the tote bags I showed you this week too? They're pretty good sized bags. Okay. And all that's going to be on my website. Okay, ready? Let's get to the main event because I just can't wait anymore. Just a reminder, go ahead and give me your number between 1 and 100 and be sure you include your name in any questions or comments you have for our guest author. And now I would like to bring her on screen with us so we can get started. Welcome, Miss Ruth Cardello. Yay!
Hello, everybody. Hi. Well, now I know where I need to go shopping. I should have seen this website before Christmas.
There you go.
I love your idea for the notebook. That's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm tickled about this, working on it. Whenever I had a minute here or a minute there, and yeah, I'm just, and I designed even the pages on the inside. I designed all the pages.
I think that's fantastic. I love that.
Yay. Okay, let's get started. To start, I would like to just ask you some background questions, if that's okay with you. And then we'll get to the questions asked by readers.
Okay.
So go ahead, everybody. Remember to put your name and your question or your comment.
Somebody looks like they know me, but Facebook user who said Ruthie, I don't know who that is because it doesn't say your name.
I know. We don't know who that is. I wonder who it could be.
Could be my husband. Could be anyone.
Ooh. Okay, give me some background information about how you became a romance author.
Okay, well, oh, hi, Vicki. No, I do know who that is. Okay. I was a kindergarten teacher. I actually taught for just about 22 years. So I was a kindergarten teacher. I kept getting laid off from my job. And I was writing romances at the time. And I decided they had moved me in from my kindergarten class into a coach position. So I love working with kids. I don't necessarily love teaching adults. That wasn't my favorite. And I had this book that had been turned down by a variety of publishers. I tried Harlequin, I tried Silhouette, I tried a bunch of those. And I said, you know what? They all said, because this is back before 50 Shades of Grey. This is back when if a man was like a little forceful, they were like, "Ooh, that's a little bit too much." Like he had been drinking the night before, woo! And mostly Made for the Billionaire was just a tongue-in-cheek, like salute to everything I loved about romance books. It's a big hair romance where he kidnaps her, but she totally wants to go. So, I mean, she even said to the people that were keeping her on the plane, she's like, it would have been harder to keep me off the plane than to get me on the plane. Like it's just, I had so much fun with it. But Harlequin did not get my sense of humor. Perhaps, thank God. And back then, it was like that first wave of indie books had come. So people were writing about their experience. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put the book up. I had studied how people were doing it. And I said, I'll just put it for free. And then if nothing else, like I wasn't looking to make money off it. I didn't think people would actually buy it, which is why Ruth Cardello is actually my name. Like I figured my friends could find my book, my family could find my book. And I figured like, they'll be like, because at the time when I put the book up, maybe 3 people had read it and 2 of them were editors. And both of them had said he was a little bit too much. He was a little too, if I toned him down a bit, then he would sell. So
no.
And one was my friend who just said, I guess it's okay because she's my friend. What is my friend going to say? She was like, I think it's a good story. It wasn't edited well, but if you could look up Made for the Billionaire, maybe I could find it somehow, but worst cover ever. I made it on WordPress. It was literally like a silhouette of people with like a chunky block of blue next to it. I wrote my name on top of it. I had no idea, but I figured it's free, right? And I'm just going to see what people say. And if they come back and they all say he's too much, then he's too much. And almost immediately, like 200,000 people downloaded it. So because it was free at a time when free was, a little more rare. So, and then they were saying like, I love Dominic. Like, where's book 2? And I'm like, I didn't even really know if I had a book 1. Like,
Wow.
So that was kind of crazy. And my editor now is a retired second grade teacher who, at the time she wrote to me, she's out from Ohio, nicest woman ever. Now you have to imagine, at that time, I can't pay my electricity bill and my cable bill in the same month. So I'm like, I'm going to pay you next month and you're going to be my next month thing. So I didn't have money for an editor. I didn't have money for, to do a design for my cover. And she texted me on Facebook and she just said, I found I loved Made for the Billionaire, but I found a mistake in it. And she said, could I just tell you what that mistake is? And I said, okay. She's the nicest woman. I'm like, sure, I would love it. Where's the mistake? And then she said, oh, I found a second one. Do you think I could tell you about the second mistake? And I said, absolutely. So I figured it. And she said, I might have found yet another mistake. Do you think that I could? I'm like, oh, please. She stayed up with me till like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
She had just written down every mistake that she'd found in the book. She said, this story is too good to have this many mistakes in it. And I said, well, I can't afford an editor. And she said, let me just go through it with you. So we literally sat there.
Wow.
And the next day she called me back with more mistakes. I was able to upload it, but I didn't make any money off of that book because it was free. So it wasn't like, although it got a lot of attention, it didn't like bring in anything to pay an editor. And this is why I like to pay forward stuff, because so the cover was really bad. And then people from 3 different continents, and like the world is a much smaller place than we think, started writing to me and saying, I love Dominic Carisi. Your cover is horrible. I'm like, well, yeah, it's always my editing. And I know I'm doing the best I can. I'm just a kindergarten teacher. I love romance. This is the best I can do. And they said, we'll make you, like 3 different people said, we'll make you a cover. And Callie McKay is an author out there right now who she came up with the best cover of the 3. And she just said, I'll make it. I said, I don't even have any money to pay you. Like, I wish I could pay you, but I have nothing. All I can do is promise you that one day if I make it, I will help you. That's all I have.
Wow.
And they're like, okay. But the second cover, that book has been through several covers, but that's really how I started. And that was my second book that I had ever written, because my first book was the one I was telling you about that someone told me was so bad that they were banging their head on the wall. But see, some people give up. That seems like I need some work. I put that story aside, and I started at the local chapter of RRW, and I started taking craft classes and honing my skill. And I circled back to that story much later when I had worked on the craft a lot. So I just I didn't give up.
Well, we're very glad you didn't.
And that woman who was the editor, the second grade teacher, I just have to tell you, I sent her the book. So I sent her the cowboy book. That was my first horrible book. And she said, I love this story about a horse, because at the time, she said, and there's a vague mention in here of a sexy cowboy. But what if the horse thought less and you had more of a romance with the cowboy? Isn't that a potential? And that's how Taken Not Spurred came about. So,
wow. So how long does it take you start to finish now?
Now is completely, because it depends which kind of book I'm writing. If I'm writing for myself, I like a solid 8 weeks. And that involves writing the book, editing the book, and getting it out. But if it's with my publisher, I usually have 6 weeks, and then it goes away into their editing process, and then it kicks back, and then it goes away and comes back. So it takes a couple of months, but it's really choppy like that.
Are you a pantser or an outline?
I'm definitely a plotter. But if my characters need something that I didn't anticipate in the plot, or if I discover something, because in the most painful day for me is like the first day. I always imagine like I'm giving birth to these characters. I believe I know who they are. Like I have thought of who they are. I've made, but once they start talking in my head, then they don't necessarily want, Like I had some characters that don't want to have sex until the end of the book. And I've had people say it's going to be a long wait. I'm like, well, you know what? This character's damaged. So I really don't want them together until she doesn't want to be with him yet. He doesn't want to be with her yet.
Yeah.
I can put it in the plot 100 times, but it's not going to feel real until they're both ready to be there. So then I change my plot.
But sometimes they can dream about it.
Yeah, they could do. You have to have something in there.
Yes. So how many books do you know about how many books you have today?
I think over 30. It's verging on 40. It's in that range, somewhere about there. I've always, yeah.
Oh. Let's see. Do you have something aspect of writing that's more difficult for you?
Always that first day. And I've kind of conquered also if I have to take a break when I'm writing. Because for me, I know it sounds like, see, if I wasn't a writer, I would probably be with a therapist. So like, your voice is in my head. But since I'm a writer, it's totally normal. Don't worry about it. You don't have to call anybody for me. I'm all good. But because it runs like a movie in my head when it's running well. So if I lose that, then I have a problem. So like if something were to come in and drag me out of writing for a month or something like that, like a big life event or, then it's hard to get the voices back. But what I do for that is I just if I have a chapter of the book or 2 chapters of the book before that happened, I'll just keep reading it like every night before I go to sleep until the voices happen in my head again.
Do you ever dream? I dream issues. Do you ever dream solutions to problems you're having?
Yes, I've done that.
I do too. Isn't it weird?
It is, because they become real to you. Now, that being said, I have had readers ask me if Dominic Carisi, my billionaire, like my world global domination billionaire, is real. And if I know him, I'm like, if I knew him, like I would be working as hard as I work. I'm like, no, I would be on that jet.
Is it Corsi? How do you pronounce his name?
Carisi is how.
Okay. I would have.
I've been corrected, and sometimes it has sounded better. Like I used to say Andrades, or Andrades, but then I had a narrator who said, wouldn't it sound better if it was Andrades? I'm like, whoa. I guess but in my mind, they're the Andrades.
Yeah,
but they could also be the Andrades. I'm like, all right, like, it doesn't really matter to me.
Melissa wants to know what your favorite novel is that you've written.
Well, I think my favorite one has to be Taken Not Spurred, only because it was my jump start. But it was, for me, that was the first book I finished. It was the very first book I put the end on. It was a horrible story in the beginning. And I blood, sweat, and tears, a whole thing. But if I had never written that, then I never would have written Made for the Billionaire. So one kind of birthed the other. As far as characters, Made for the Billionaire with Dominic Carisi, he was just like, that was my fantasy man. Like it was me. But when I wrote Taken Not Spurred, if you read that book and you know me, she has a horse. It's how everybody starts writing. I have a horse. Like she went to Texas. I've always dreamt of going to Texas. She met a cowboy. I've always dreamt of going. So a lot of that story is me, in there, which is why I had to take some of me out of it. But Made for the Billionaire is definitely, that book has a special part in my heart because that was the first time I really laughed so much while writing and just felt free, because I still didn't think anybody was going to read it. But I just sat down. I think it was one of my friends who dared me and just said, what do you really love to read? And I said, I love Harlequin romance, alpha men, these, drama stories that, take you away. They've got jets. They do all that. She said, well, just write 3 chapters and send it to Harlequin. And I said, I could never do that. And I did it. And they didn't like it. So, but I kept writing. Okay. They're like, no, not good. I'm like, that is not going to stop me. Will not be stopped.
Do you have any writing quirks?
Like, what do you mean by a quirk?
Um, like, football players have certain, or sports people have things they have to do in a certain order or whatever, or good luck or whatever.
Oh, I don't know. I think some people can write anywhere. I can't write anywhere. Like I need my space without distractions. I don't care where it is, but I need, because I went, like I said, I get into this world and it becomes a movie in my head. So I think like I've got tons of walls, I've got doors, I've got locks between me and the rest of the world. I think that's kind of maybe quirky. Or I do have one story about like we had somebody working on the roof of our other house and it was 850 square foot house. So if you were working on the roof of that, there was literally no place to hide. So I went to the library to work, and then I guess I like cry. Maybe that's weird too. I cry sometimes when I'm writing a good scene because I'm in the library. I have my headphones on. I'm doing my best to keep the scene alive and to not be disturbed by anybody around me. That's very hard for me. And the librarian came over and she said, "Would you like a private room?" And I said, "Oh, no one's bothering me." She said, "Well," and then I realized I was sobbing. So then that was the last time I went in public. So maybe just the little quirk is I have to be by myself.
Yeah, I have to be by myself too. Do you have a routine for when you're writing your novels? That question is from Melissa.
A routine. I always outline it first. And then in the ideal world, I have like a week to steep. I can skip that week, but that just means that later in the book I'll be circling back to stuff and I'll be like, "Oh, I never thought of that. Why didn't I not put that in the beginning of the book?" It's much better if I just have my crazy boards all around me and I just get up in my pajamas and I walk around and I look at it and I think, what's missing here? Who would do that? And I move little sticky notes all over the board and I say, what would that happen? And then they start, if I give myself enough time to steep, like the best for me is if I finish a book before vacation, I go away on vacation and I can just daydream. You know, all those times when you wait, that's all those times people think I'm listening and I'm not actually listening to them. Sorry about that, guys. Or like if you're standing in line at the grocery store, I'm just running through my mind on things. So and then I come home and I put everything up on sticky notes.
So your series are so tightly woven, and how do you keep all that straight?
I do have Bibles. I have a lot of Bibles. And then when I flip back and forth between series, when I'm writing in one to the other, I'll go back and reread it. And then I'll take notes again for something, because to me, voice consistency is almost more important. People will say every once in a while, that woman was blonde in book one. I'm like, well, I've changed my hair color like 5 times in my life. So that wouldn't kill me if the hair color changed. But I definitely want to keep the voice of the character alive. So I like to get back into the head of them. And oh my gosh, as far as Bibles are concerned, the Barrington Billionaires, if you're new to me, then you don't know that I have written a series with my niece and my sister, and their books feed through the same plot for the Barrington Billionaires. They don't go into the rest of my books, but for the Barrington Billionaires, they're woven through. So the characters that you see in my book one, you'll also see in my sister's book through a different set of eyes, and you'll also see in my niece's books. That was hard, and that required a lot of dry erase plotting.
Wow. That just seems totally impossible to me.
Or wonderful. We sat around and we really laughed and we plotted it. And, you know, it was so fun to not be crying in the library by myself. I was like crying with my sister, because when we were talking today about the character that you're reading in Stolen Kisses, Kenzie has a deep secret of something horrible that happened to her that only one person really knows about. And that's her character. And because he didn't betray her secret, he didn't tell her truth because she wasn't ready to tell her truth, he took a hit for it. And that changed his life with his family. So it's kind of, you know, it was really fun to take those characters and say, okay, now we're going to look at the same story but through somebody else it affected. Like there was that one incident that happened, but how would it have changed all the lives around it? That part was fun.
So when you start a series from the beginning, do you map out the entire series, or do you start at book one and it builds?
I know, well, like the Barringtons are growing just because I don't want to leave that world. So I finished off the Barrington boys and then I'm like, oh my God, there's so many characters in this series that I love. Like right now I'm working on the meatheads. I wrote these meatheads at every book that I wrote them in. They were these big lumberjack,
Right.
not lumberjacks, but they're lumberjack-ish,
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous doofuses that are just hilarious, yet kind of sexy if you can, like, and I just,
Is Connor going to be?
yes,
Connor one of them?
that's Reluctantly Alpha. And then because there's two stories with Bradford in it, so I've got two meatheads sandwiched around one really dark and damaged character. And because I can't write this, people are like, oh, I love Dominic, but Dominic can't be 20 books. He can't be 40 books. There's only one Dominic. And then I like a little meathead on the side. And, there's got to be an alpha guy. Not every man in the room can constantly be in charge. There are other dynamics at play.
Right.
So,
well, they're kind of like comic relief.
Yes. But he's got such a good heart. And I really sat down and like, maybe I have a thing for like big, dumb guys.
How do you come up with the things that they say, though? I mean, they say some outlandish things.
Well, I have 8 brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I have 8 brothers. They had a lot of friends, and they, a lot of the stuff that they do.
Okay.
One of my brothers, I sprinkled in another one of my brothers. I just had fun with that. So,
do your family read your books?
You know what? Strangely enough, I have a nephew who reads my books because he just likes the fact that he can hear my voice through the characters. Not that they're the only romances he's ever read, but I don't think too much of my family. You know how they say you can never like preach in your own town. I think it's weird for people that know me to read books that I read because they always think it's me. Like they can't get the fact that that's not me and my husband. So then they can't look him in the eye and think, I'm not flying around in private jets. My husband and I are not hanging from the chandeliers. It's like, this is really just fantasy, guys. It's just fun.
Melissa wants to know, who are some of your favorite authors?
Well, see, now this has changed over time because, hold on.
I have some.
Because it used to be, I was full on like Harlequin, Sandra Martin, and all those one. But then as I met so many authors, I just fell in love with the authors and their writing. Like when I sit down and I'm reading, I don't know, everybody from J.S. Scott, Melody Ann, Lauren Blakely, Carly Phillips. It's because now I know them. I still get giddy weird, just so you know.
Like I am right now talking to you.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was weird. Okay, I will make you feel better about this because, all right, Barbara Freethy was somebody I've read almost everything that she wrote for so many years, right? So I met her for the very first time, I don't know if it was like 5 or 6 years ago. And when I met her, I like started to shake like a puppy because I was like, oh my God, like I'm not that, I think if I met movie stars, I wouldn't be as impressed as like someone that I've read all your work. So I hugged her, and then I remembered a book that I loved of hers, and I hugged her again. And then I remembered like another book that I loved of hers. And so I kept hugging. It like got weird, right? Because then she was like, because she didn't know me. She was like, get off of me. And then I was like, oh, but I never introduced myself. So I was just like this really weird, awkward, clingy reader. And then that night we were going off to a dinner with a whole bunch of authors. And I get in the van with her. And she looks at me. And then finally I introduced myself. But for just 1 minute, I really thought I was that creepy stalker person getting in the car. She was like, ooh, ooh, oh. Like, just coming out to dinner with you. Because now we're besties. But.
And I think, is it you that has a tendency for walking out without paying?
I have done that. That is.
I stalk you. You think I don't know these things about you, but I do.
I did that to J.S. Scott because we were so excited. We were hanging out with her. It was so exciting to be with her. And then we all went back to our rooms, and I'm like, did you pay? Because I don't think I paid. My friend was like, I didn't pay. I thought you paid. We were like, I thought you paid. So then we tracked her down, and we were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Melissa also wants to know what your favorite type of story to write, or trope is. Do you have one?
Well, I'm definitely full on billionaire, because if you're going to do anything wrong, you could be rich. It's a little more forgivable. Like everything. But I do like, I dabbled in cowboys because I kind of like cowboys, but I really like the whole accidentally rich. I don't know, that whole, I like to think that rich people are as miserable as we are. So I like to take miserable people and kind of guide them towards happy and have that happen regardless of how much money they have. But every once in a while I sit down and I'm like, what would it be like to just be, what would it be like if you could just have anything?
I could get used to that. Pat wants to know, why did you decide to bring the Corsi family? Wait a minute, how do you pronounce it?
I say Carisi.
Carisi family back.
Why did I bring them back?
Why did you decide to bring the Carisi family back?
You mean in the new one, in the broken one? Is that what it is? Or
I guess maybe that's what she doesn't say, but I would assume that's what she means.
Okay, so they've kind of always been there just because that's like the first family in there. But I'm kind of branching towards doing the next generation of them. And I just thought it was time I want Dominic to finally have his family. I want to finish off that chapter. And I kind of left him hanging. Look, I heard you like to bar dance too. Oh, I know, from Anne. Yes. See the dirt fly. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that message. I'll tell that Melody Ann story later. But yeah, I think I just wanted to finish off his world. And those characters are so alive still, but they haven't finished on, he had a few unfinished business things out there. So I wanted to bring him back.
Pat also wants you to know that she loves your Lone Star book series.
Okay, so the cowboy books, not my biggest sellers, but I did enjoy writing those. I mean, I laughed so hard writing the first one in that series. It was probably my favorite for just my ridiculous voice, because it was really me. That's how ridiculous I would be if I went down to Texas with my horse. I would end up in because that book starts off with, do you ever read that one? She starts off in this guy's shower. So, and I would make that decision. If I drove down to Texas and I was at my friend's house and she was not there and it was super hot, she decided she was going to go in and take a shower, I think I would do that. It's hot. I'm going in.
You come up with some of the most original ideas. Pat also says, Dominic Corsi is my favorite character. How did you dream him up?
He was just the culmination of, I think, everything I loved in the romances that I had read. I really sat down and I thought, what do I love the most about? What do I love about Alpha Billy? And not even so much. It wasn't so much the money he had. I was like, oh, I love him damaged. Oh, I love him forceful. Oh, I want to be kidnapped. I want to be kidnapped. And then I also like the strong character. So I like to put him with somebody who could balance, who wasn't afraid of him, kind of thing. So yeah, it was just, and I liked that she could laugh at him. So I don't think I've ever written a hero that I would hate if my daughter dated. How's that? So if she brought home this person, I mean, he's definitely, you don't know what he's done in the past. He probably has a really shady past, but he's a good person underneath all that. So
I like to turn him. I like for him to start out not necessarily a good guy, but by the end of it, you're pulling for him. At
Yeah.
least I hope. At least I hope. Okay, Pat says the Barrington family is also a favorite of mine. I would love to read more about Lexi Chambers and Clay Landon, even though they are not Barrington. I hope they get another book so we can see
Well,
how they are
Clay was a
doing.
little bit of a rascal, and he is in. He is in, but I haven't put Lexi really so much in there. In Reluctantly Alpha, you see him there. You see him in Never Goodbye, and not always painted in the best light, because that's one thing I like about characters. When they're in their own head, they are amazing. When they're in somebody else's head, we don't look at everybody and think that person is phenomenal at all times. Clay has way too much money. He's bored a lot, and he gets involved in things questionably, for a reason like that. But in Reluctantly Alpha, he's a fairy godfather, which
Ah,
is kind of fun because for a man who does essentially, Connor doesn't want to change, but he's pulled into. Can you imagine like this big, simple beer drinking lumberjacky guy, and your sister marries a billionaire, and now you're at all the billionaire parties? Like, you can't be there in your plaid anymore.
do you know how hard you're making it for us to wait until March?
I had so much fun with this. You know how hard it is not to write Bradford after that story? I love Bradford. Bradford's Ian's damaged friend. I want to dive right into that, but I do have book 3 of this series. So this one's coming out next. And so I have The Broken One. I don't know if you guys have read that one.
I have.
Yeah. And then followed up by The Wild One, which comes out 28th in January.
Wow.
And so now I'm working on book 3 of that because that's with my publisher. So I'm excited about that one.
Now, the Wild One comes out
The
January.
28th.
Yeah.
I think it's the 28th of January.
Looking forward to that.
Now, if you want to go to Paris in your imagination, that's where I took everybody.
Wow. Have you visited Paris? Have you been there?
Yes, when I was 20, I went to school there. And what's funny is I went to school there super, super poor. So I lost so much weight there because I was I was 20. So I didn't eat all week. So I think I lived on like one baguette a day. But I had budgeted, like I worked 3 jobs. I saved up the money to go so I could go to my junior year abroad. And then I would save up my budgeted allowance so that I could like drink on the weekends. So like, I don't need to eat on Monday through Friday. I will survive Monday through Friday so that I could go to a nice dinner on Saturday. So that's the way the young think.
Let's see. Melissa, what was your favorite part in Always Mine, and what was the hardest part to write? What was your favorite part of Always Mine?
I think my favorite part of that book was when he experienced her paintings, her mother's paintings.
Oh gosh, yes.
Because I don't think he's really in touch with his softer side. He has a softer side, but the Barringtons in general, they had a big loss in the beginning. Their mother had a big crisis. The father's done, damage control so much. So they were all taught, shut down, shut up. Problems happen outside the house. You don't talk about your issues. You don't have issues. So if he ever did have a softer side, it was cut off early. So then I think that moment really touched me because I started to see that beneath that, it was like the beginning of him cracking. In the beginning, he just wanted to have sex with her. And then, he started to feel something, I think, in that scene. So I think that was really touching. And then the hardest scene in that one to write, because I liked her so much and I didn't want to go over the top with it, but when the museum burns and she looks at Sophie and she doesn't know if they did it. Now, what I loved about and I hated about the scene was he doesn't know if he did it because he's a questionable character.
Well, but he didn't know if he did it by association.
Yes.
Somehow.
But when you set something in motion, if you don't stop it, then you're kind of responsible for it to a certain degree. And he doesn't think that his people did it or that they would do it. But he couldn't look her in the eye and say for sure that somebody he knew wouldn't have taken it that far. And that was hard for me to write that scene also where, because Sophie's such a soft woman, at least she seems very soft in the beginning. Then you realize her real strength. But for her to look at her son and for them all to look at him and just say, like, did you do this? Is a hard family moment. Because that can tear you all apart when you realize that even your family thinks you're capable of something that horrible.
Even your mother and father.
Right. They didn't look at him and go, my son would never do that. They were all like, oh my God, did you do this? Don't do this.
Oh goodness. Oh, and the tactile painting. Have you seen that? Have you experienced that, or how?
I did a lot of research for it, for like what's available out there. And they do have little displays here and there. And then I just let my imagination go wild. I imagined a woman who was an artist without sight. And then how would she express that? And then I thought that was such a beautiful thing because artsy people tend to hang out with other artsy people and also create, artsy people. And then what would it be like to have, that legacy? I thought it was a fun story to write.
That was very fascinating, very deep. How did you come up with the idea for this book? And the series. I added that.
The series, I always do an overarching plot. So I knew the secrets from the very beginning and I knew where I was going. The individual parts of it, I didn't know. Like I didn't know that there would be a museum. I didn't know things like that. But then I love to just look around the internet at interesting and fun things. And if I see an article about something, I'm like, that's really cool. I don't know what I'll use that for, but that's really interesting. And that's kind of how I come up with my ideas like that. Like you'll see in my books, like in the Legacy collection, she's fascinated by toilets. And that's because I read a book about how people were trying to bring toilets to third world countries. And it just moved me. And I thought, that's worth mentioning. So I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to mention it. I don't know who's going to be into that, but I'm putting that in my file.
Let's see here. I get so involved in listening to you, I forget that I'm supposed to ask you questions. Do you research your novels? Absolutely.
Right now, because the character that I'm coming up with right now, McKenna, is her father was a NASCAR driver. And not the biggest NASCAR driver. He's not going to be the biggest guy in there, but he will have. So right now I'm doing a lot of research. I'm pulling in any favors I can from anybody who knows something about. And if I'm lucky, I'll find somebody who actually, has driven or something like that that give me extra stories. If I'm not lucky, it's funny too, because if you put it out there in the world, now I'll probably start to meet more people that have NASCAR, some affiliation, like somebody was in a pit crew, somebody, and then they'll tell me some interesting story.
Now, Richard Petty lives close to me.
Really?
Kind of close to me.
Like, once you put the request out there in the world, somehow it happens.
He's a wonderful guy. He really is. If you wrote him, I bet he'd talk to you.
Ooh, mate, right?
I put that out in the universe.
I want to hear it, see? Well, did you see me asking about noodling? I don't know if
catfish noodling,
right? So I put it on my Facebook page and I'm like, I am fascinated by catfish noodling, right? And then I went to a wedding and I sat down next to a woman who was like, I noodle. I've always noodled. It's the best thing in the world. I'm like, that's great. How have I come this far in my life? I'm 51 years old. I've never met a noodler in my life, but I'm like, I met that person. There was a person who delivered my horse out from Oklahoma. When they came out, I said, have you ever noodled? He's like, have I noodled? And then he told me like all these stories about whatever. I'm like, I didn't know.
I am not sticking my hand in a hole and not knowing what's in it.
Oh, it is hilarious to imagine that the Barringtons, because they are not the kind of people who would noodle. That they go to this event. Like, it's just, I had so much fun with that. But that's, so maybe I'll find out, maybe I'll meet NASCAR people wherever I go now and they'll tell me.
There you go. Let's see. Will we ever learn what happened to Emily's dad? That is from Marisol.
Probably not. I could go circle back to that, but I don't believe Emily's dad. What's the question left with that one? Is that bad?
Will we ever?
What did I leave readers not knowing about his demise?
I'm not really sure. Oh, you never said she never knew who it was.
Oh.
So maybe that she never knew who her father was, or no, she knew his name. She knew his name, but she never made an attempt to see him. Isn't that right?
I don't think so. I mean, granted, this is many, many books ago now, but I thought her father. If I go, this is bad, isn't it? Like,
Emily's father. Okay, here's what happened.
Built that house.
That was the grandfather.
That was the grandfather.
Yeah, her father left her mother.
That dad who's gone.
Remember her mother. See, I get so into this. Her mother was blind, and her daddy's family.
Oh yes.
Made him not be with her because they thought it would be too.
Oh yeah, no, he's gone.
Sorry. Okay. Well, there you go. Why was Asher so hard on his dad?
Now that comes out more and more as you go through the series. But it's tied into wait a minute. Siri is talking to me and I said series. Hold on. Let me turn off Siri, who wants to listen to my conversation.
That may be beyond my abilities at the moment.
It might be beyond his ability. Don't talk to me right now. Okay, so he's really hard on his father because his father, in his mind right then, what he doesn't know yet is how far his father went for the love of his mother. But the rumor was at the very beginning that he took money, the state money and everything, and he paid for his mistress. And he didn't protect the family, and he lost his career over this big scandal. And there's a lot of things that in Asher's mind, like they don't know the truth yet. When the truth starts coming out on how bad things were, then everyone's opinion changes. But Dale was just a really good guy who was doing his best in a very bad situation. And he thought he was holding his family together. He took a hit with his career and didn't challenge his wife's sister.
Because who was an evil person.
Who was evil. She's the only character who's died off in my series, and everybody went, yay! Patrice was horrible. But do you know she was based on somebody I knew? Who was not that bad. I mean, the person I knew was not, but I mean, there are some people that even when they die, they're that bitter. And I wanted to one day portray that in a character because I'd seen it. So.
Were there any surprises as you wrote in this story? Okay, here. This isn't my question. This is Marisol's question, but I know what she's talking about because I wrote a book, or I do it in a lot of my books. I don't see something coming, but see, I'm a pantser, so I write as it comes to me, and I can remember very clearly writing this one book, and it went totally left field that I didn't even see coming. So I'm sure that's what she's asking.
Sometimes I'll have something happen like at the end, or some epiphany will hit me, like where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally why they're doing it. But most of the time when I sit down to write a series, I dream of all the characters and who they are. And then like their stories unfold for me, and sometimes who they're with is a surprise when I get there. But I know where they're going in general. Like I knew what the secret was. I knew what they'd find. I knew what it was. And it was a twisted enough plot that it all had to make sense. Like the timing had to make sense. How she could have done it had to make sense. Where he was, how he was there, all of that. And it had to be reasonably believable. So when I'm plotting out a series, I do discovery points in my series. Like, when will they, I always think, like, when do you want the reader to think that he's alive? Like, so first you might mourn the death of him. Then there's like a hint of something. Then you want them to question whether something could be true. And then you want them to start to think this could be true. And then I like to make it as believable as possible, because the emotions are real in the characters. Like, there are characters that don't want to look for something because you've been disappointed before. So I want to value that feeling, because that's true.
Right.
If you've been in pain for 30 years over something and someone wants to bring it up again, you're like, that is long dead. Like, let's not rehash all that stuff. So there weren't surprises necessarily. There was journeys that I like, the depth that I found in each one. And I think that's the biggest challenge, that you can put a plot point, but it's how you make that plot point really powerful, and how because sometimes it was tearing that family apart before they all came together at the end, before the meatheads, because they eventually are. Now they're a happy family. But before that, there were a lot of times when you could look at that family and think, I don't think you can make it. I'm not even sure you should be together. I think breaking off in different directions might be the best.
You should not call them meatheads. They're just socially challenged.
But see, I mean that there's two ways. In the book, they actually said you can only call them, that one of the characters says you can only call them meatheads if you do it with love. And I call them meatheads with love, because I would actually, I fell in love with them when I wrote that story.
Some questions from the viewer. How did Wolfie come into play in your storyline? That's from Vicky.
Hi, Vicky. Did you see, I'm not sure if you're aware that, so Wolfie is really Wolfius in reality. And we went down to Florida. My daughter has this stuffed animal that we take everywhere with us, everywhere. Every vacation we're on, every sleepaway, not necessarily in the car. Like, she can go in the car. She's not like the daughter in there, but most places. And he's not just a stuffed animal that she has. This story is my oldest daughter had this stuffed animal, and my oldest daughter is 26. So she had this stuffed animal, and her brother looked at it when he was younger, and he said, I want to play with that. And she said, no, that's my stuffed animal. You can't touch it. And as soon as you tell a child you can't touch it, it's like the only stuffed animal in the house he wants. Like, and no matter what his toys were, he's like, I just want to sit with it. I want to touch it. I want to hug it. I want to pet it. So eventually my oldest daughter gave it to my middle child. And that was his coveted, oh my God, I can't believe I have this stuffed animal that she had that I loved for so long, and she finally gave to me. So of course, when my youngest came along, and now he's a teenager, she would go into his room and she would be like, what is that? Be like, that is the only thing you can't touch. That's my stuffed animal. She'd be like, but can I just play with it? Can I talk to it? Can I hug it? Can I see it? And he was like, no. So by the time she was, I think like 3.5, 4, she finally like wore him down, and he was like, you can have him. So it became like this multi-generational, like, this was my sister's and it was my brother's, and they bequeathed it to me. And to her, like, we have a painting downstairs. It's so amazing that how their imagination works at that age, but it's a painting of him. And when she put it up on the wall, she said, Mom, I'm so glad you get to see this, because now you can see how I see him. That's really his expression. Like, when I look at this stuffed animal, I just see a stuffed animal. Like, it is just glass. But when she looks at him, and then you look at the painting, like, there's legitimately emotion in his eyes. And I thought, that's like the magic of childhood. So I tried to take, and oh my gosh. So we were flying down to Florida, and we went to the bathroom, and we left him outside of the bathroom in the southwest hallway. And then we didn't find him for several days. Like, he went on this big journey around to there. And it was beautiful. The beauty of the story was, like, 5,000 people shared the post. It was, Southwest absolutely got engaged with it. They found him. They made sure he came back to us. They mailed him to where we were. But those few days before he came back to us, it was hell.
I followed that story very closely.
Oh my God.
I was right there cheering for y'all.
And he was so dirty that I thought nobody wanted him.
Oh.
It wasn't, nobody stole this bear. But it was, I took all that emotion. So when I had something like that, I'm like, this has got to be. And people filled up my mail. Like, I got so many emails from people who were like, I still have my stuffed animal from when I was 5. I still have this bear. My brother still has his bear. My sister goes to college. My husband's a firefighter. And he, my brother went off to, war, and he came back, and the first thing he wanted to see was if his stuffed animal was still there.
Oh.
Weird stuff like that. And I said, you know what? It's not just my daughter who has this connection. So I'm going to take all of these emotions, and I changed, the names and the situation and stuff, but I thought and that really makes it easy to write that story as far as those scenes, because I know that pain. Like when her daughter said she threw him out the window, I know that fear of when my daughter, it was a different situation, but when she looked at me and she said, I don't have him, we were outside the airport getting our luggage, I thought, oh no, there just goes everything. There goes everything.
Well, we're almost at the end of our time, but before we go, I'd like to just ask you some kind of strange questions
Okay.
for us to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, just short and sweet answers. What are you currently reading?
This week, nothing, because my daughter's home.
Okay.
So I will be reading next week. But right now I am surviving school.
What is your go-to song in the shower?
Oh, my go-to sound, and I don't know that I sing in the shower. I like to listen to Toby Keith. So I play music in the background, but I'm not necessarily a singer.
But everybody sings in the shower, don't you?
No, I don't sing in the shower.
Okay.
I'm plotting my books in the shower.
Me too. Do you have any hidden talents or not so hidden talents?
Okay. When I was in college, I used to make money doing fortune telling. But the same things that make me a good romance reader made me a good, I'm not singing for you, that made me good at fortune telling, because you know how I have big hair, billionaires kind of thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I would wear this thing on my head. I had this crystal ball that I never saw anything in. And I had these tarot cards, and people would come to see, like, so I don't even want to say that college was 30 years ago, because that seems, let's not say that. Let's just say college was a while ago. But $35 a while ago was like $1 million. And I couldn't believe that people wanted to pay me to read their cards. But I think most of it was just like I would do this, like, I'm hypnotizing you. And most of the time it was just baloney. That, just somebody likes you, somebody. But every once in a while, like there was one woman who'd come see me every month, and I could literally tell her what was going on in her life. I think she's psychic. I don't think I'm psychic. I think she had like a transmitter, and it was all very unimportant stuff. Like normally I would be looking at the cards and I'm like, I don't see anything here. So I'm just going to tell you that wonderful things are going to happen, and you're going to get money, and some man loves you. And I would be making crap up, right? And you're going to be happy with.
I can see that you would be really good at that.
But that one woman, she'd come in, it was like she'd mind meld with me. I'd be like, you had a fight with your mother about money. She's like, I'm like, and your brother, he wrecked your car. He did. I'm like, how do I know this crap? I'm not even, get out of my head. I'm like, just downloading unimportant information. But it wasn't like I could tell the future. I could just tell her. But then she'd come, and like, Angie will come back, and she'd come every month and just give me $35.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I will tell you again unimportant stuff that you already know.
Do you have a favorite snack while you're eating, while you're writing?
Oh,
Mine is M&M's.
I do love coffee. I could drink my coffee in the morning. And you know what? I think if it's bad, it's popcorn. Popcorn, I think, is my biggest weakness. I could just munch, and that's bad because I have to do a little bowl. Otherwise, I think I could finish a bag while I'm just munching away, like right and munching.
Let's see. Do you like to read ebooks or paperbacks?
Ebooks. Yeah.
Do you have anything motivational on your desk? Like, here's mine. I can show you mine. See that?
Oh, no. I'm afraid to show you my desk. I just have deadlines, and you know what I do though? Look, okay, I don't have it on my desk, but I do have like a million themed t-shirts. And so maybe I am weirder than I'll admit that I'm weird. Because I have ones that say like I'm writing, blah, blah, blah. So like when I feel like I might be like I don't have the energy, like I'll put on the right t-shirt and that will really motivate me. But this one is, in a world where you can be anything, be nice.
Nice.
So it's kind of like my Mojo t-shirts, and nobody sees them, and I wear them underneath stuff and everything. But I've got one that's like peanut butter jelly and fluffernutter butter. It's like, can we just not all get along, or like we just things like that. So
I love it. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Like this week?
There's no time limit on the question.
Anywhere in the world. I mean, I think I like Italy. I've been to Italy. It could just be the pasta. I don't know. I've never met an Italian I didn't like, or pasta. Maybe that's why I write about Italians in Italy, because I meet Italians, they feed me carbs. You have this amazing, they look at me, they don't think I'm chubby. They're like, you need more pasta. I'm like, I do need more pasta. You read my mind. Give me pasta.
Oh gosh. Well, Ruth, we are at the end of our meeting.
Do you want to? I'll let you do it. If you send me the winners, because it's your group. But I have 3 books I can give away if you want to.
Wow.
I could do a book.
I'll answer for everybody. Yeah.
Always mine. And then, I mean, you could do this together if you want to do it as a set. The broken one, and if we do it fast, and I can nag my husband to do it, the wild one you could read before it comes out.
Oh, let's see. How can I make it so that I could win that one? I will certainly do that. I'll pick 4 winners, 1 for me and 3 for you. Is that okay?
I would do that.
And the way I do it is I assign everybody. Everybody's got numbers here. I'll write a few more numbers, and we'll see. Or I'll run them through the random picker. That's what I'll do. And if you wouldn't mind, come back sometime and answer everyone's question. I don't think we got to all of them tonight.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind, just
I will come back. Thank you so much for having me. I adore you. So anything.
Oh gosh, don't say that.
You just tell me. I'll be back.
I couldn't believe you said yes, number one, when I asked you to do this. I just really couldn't. I had to get my nerve up first. Do it. So I'm just.
Well, now the way that you know that I like you is that I spoke to you on video when I was unshowered. This is the showered me. The unshowered me is a very secret. So a small group of people that get to see all of this.
Let me tell the readers. Before I do these shows, I like to make sure I can connect with the authors. So, and I tell them the weekend before the club, I say, anytime this weekend that you can just take 5 minutes, just make sure we can get a connection. Well, she texts me at like 7 a.m. I'm still in the bed. And she says, I'm ready. I said, well, give me 5 minutes. Let me at least brush my hair. So, and that's
you're lucky it was 7. I get up at 5:30 every morning, and that's when I do my bit. Sometimes 4:30, because anything, I've got to get business done before, my day starts. So,
well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to let you go now.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
We have enjoyed it. Everybody tell Ruth bye.
And then just send me the names. Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
But we're not through, so don't go anywhere because we have to announce our next month's book club book and our visiting author. And this is another one that I'm super excited that she is going to be here for our January meeting. And again, I'm just thrilled, and I couldn't believe that she said yes. So let's hurry and get her on screen before she backs out. So our next month author is going to be Shell Bliss. Welcome, Shell. Oh, wait a minute. I can't hear you. Do you have your sound on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell everybody what? I'm going to take me out of the picture for just a second so we can show your book. And if you would just tell, well, we can do it this way. Tell everybody what book we're doing.
I have Throttle Me. That's the book we're doing for the group next month, or this month, January.
Excellent. And I've already got this book up on the website. So you can go to lizscottbooks.com and you can go ahead and download it. And I believe that book is free.
It is free. The book is free on all retailers.
On all retailers. So just go and get it. And this is Throttle Me is going to be a potato chip book because you will not want to stop until you've read them every one. Throttle Me was my very first Shell Bliss book, and I quickly had to just gobble the rest of them up. They just grab you, and you just can't put them down. So yay that you're going to be here, and we get to that.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So that's all that we need to do. I hope everyone is excited about talking to Shell next month. So thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you next month.
Thank you. See you guys then. Bye.
Okay, let's do our winner for the night. And let me just go back through. Now remember, it was a number between 1 and 100. And if you don't put your name in the comment, I am not going to know who it is. I'll give you just a couple of minutes if you want to go ahead and put your guess, a number between 1 and 100. And then I will announce the winner. Okay. There's a bit of a lag time, so I am going to wait just a couple of seconds to see if anybody else has a number they want to guess. Okay, I see Melissa at 56, Deb T at 20. I don't know who said 22. Debbie Rowe, 24. Somebody said 20, but I don't know who. And let's see. Vicky, 32. Marisol, 29. So that's all that we have. Then Vicky, congratulations. The number was 34, and I do believe that your guess at 32 is the closest to 34. So I'll be messaging you, Vicky, to get your info for a signed copy from me. For the 3 books that Ruth was nice enough to gift us with. I will run everybody's name that was here tonight through Random Picker, and I'll post it on here tomorrow. Does that sound good? Okay. That is it for tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. I do look so forward to these meetings, and I am so glad that you enjoy them and that you want to come and be a part of them, because I just love getting to know authors that I have admired for years, and just get to know them a little bit. So thank you for allowing me to do that. So with that, I'm going to say good night, and I hope you have a wonderful New Year's and safe New Year's, and we'll talk again in January. Bye-bye.